Last winter, I desperately needed a break from the city. I spent hours scrolling through rental apps and finally found a cheap, isolated wooden cabin nestled deep in the snowy mountains. The listing had no reviews, but the pictures looked cozy, and the price was unbelievably low. Minda. I arrived on a Friday evening just as the sun was setting. The nearest town was 30 miles away, and my cell phone lost signal an hour before I even reached the driveway. I was completely cut off from the world. But at the time, that was exactly what I wanted. The cabin was older than it looked in the photos. The floorboards creaked heavily, and the air smelled like dust and damp pine. In the living room, right above the fireplace, was a massive antique mirror with a heavy wooden frame. It felt oddly out of place for a cheap rental, but I ignored it, unpacked my bags, and made a fire. The first night was peaceful, but on Saturday night, the isolation started playing tricks on my mind. Around Ling AM. I was reading a book on the couch when I heard it. A soft, muffled thump. I froze. The sound didn't come from outside in the snow. It sounded like it came from inside the cabin, specifically from the wall directly behind the fireplace. I convinced myself it was just mice or the old wood settling in the cold. I turned off the lamp and went into the bedroom, but as I lay in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Scratching. It was slow and deliberate. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Darino. I quietly got out of bed, grabbed a heavy metal flashlight, and crept into the living room. The scratching sound was definitely coming from behind the large antique mirror. I walked up to the mirror. The only light in the room was the pale moonlight, reflecting off the snow outside. I looked at my own reflection in the glass. But something was wrong. The lighting in the reflection looked deep. I remembered an old trick I read about online. I pressed the tip of my index finger against the glass. There was no gap between my finger and the reflection. They touched perfectly. My heart dropped into my stomach. It wasn't a normal mirror. It was a two-way mirror. I pressed my face close to the glass and cupped my hands over my eyes to block out the glare. On the other side of the glass was a pitch-black, narrow hallway. And standing in that darkness, mere inches from my face on the other side of the glass, was a man. I couldn't see his body, but I could see the whites of his wildly wide eyes, staring directly back at me, and a horrific, jagged smile. He knew I saw him. Suddenly, a loud, muffled bang echoed as he slammed his fists against the back of the glass. He started screaming incoherently from inside the walls, violently pounding on the mirror. The heavy glass started to crack. When I didn't pack my bags, I didn't grab my coat. I sprinted to the front door, unlocked it, and ran barefoot into the freezing snow, throwing myself into my car. I sped down the icy mountain road in the pitch black, sobbing hysterically, until I reached a gas station 2 hours later. The police raided the cabin the next morning. Behind the mirror, they found a hidden passageway that ran through the walls of the entire cabin. Inside the crawl space, they found empty food wrappers, a sleeping bag, and hundreds of photos, all taken of me from the night before. While I was sitting on the couch, the owner of the property had been dead for 3 years. The man living in the walls was never caught,